I know. I
I've
get what
showed
you're
like
saying.
10, 12 houses to one
It starts
client,
blurring.
but it's hard. It's very hard. We have like little funny nicknames that we come up
Yeah.
with,
The house with the turtle,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Welcome to the Opposites Unite podcast.
Where we discuss real estate and lifestyle topics,
Break barriers
build connections,
and find common ground.
let's unite. Did you know that according to the National Association of Realtors, there are 179 reasons why consumers need an agent?
That's a lot of reasons.
It is. So today I think we're going to hit the top 5. What do you think?
That sounds better than the 179?
Yes, we
Wow,
will be here
okay.
all night.
Yeah, no. So let's do 5.
Okay.
So number 1 is when you have a relationship with an agent, you share the responsibility and the goals. And what I mean by that is that your goals are now the goals of the agent, right? To find you the home and that fits the needs of your family. They help you evaluate your finances so that when you're looking for that home that fits the needs of your family, also fits the financial needs, right?
Yeah.
And the ability. So
I think what you're saying is maybe like one family member to the next. They might have different goals. Like the husband's needs might be different than the wife's needs or than the kids' needs, right? They might need to be in a certain school district, or the husband might want like some big fun garage, or
Exactly. And weighing that all out and going through the emotions of it when you see these amenities or not having the amenities, and there have to either be cuts or, accommodations for either. There's a bit of a negotiation even between that dynamic.
I have seen husbands and wives fight over who got their way.
Well, I think there's a wants and needs list analysis that we do with our clients, right?
Yes.
And that makes them really evaluate what is exactly a want, or what is a need, and how to help prioritize these things, right? So it's a very crucial part, which is a little bit of psychiatry almost.
I do feel like a therapist sometimes.
Yeah, it's therapy,
well, because we
right?
become the mediator between the family, because nobody wants to fight at the end of the day, but they want to have a little bit of a win. So
Right.
sometimes we have to mediate that and
just talk it out. I mean, really, that's what it is.
Definitely.
Because at the end of the day, we all want we want everything. But when it comes down to it, and you're making a tough decision like this, you want to be comfortable with your decision, and you want to know that you negotiated in a way that was in the best interest of your family, ultimately, right? So, that's one big reason why you would want to work with an agent, is to work through that part. People don't think so. They think they're just going to go out and figure it out as they go. But just having a conversation with somebody that has a strategy to it would really help put that in sync. And when you go out into the world, starting to look for these properties, you're set up and you're ready.
Yeah, most definitely. Also, one of the big things, value adds that we bring is we can make lender recommendations, home inspector recommendations, those sorts of things. So, I mean, we work with professionals, and sometimes we have great experiences and sometimes we have terrible experiences, right? So we want to prevent our clients from making those same mistakes that we've experienced in the past. So oftentimes, we will set them up with a preferred lender and, kind of let them take it from there so they can establish a budget and do pre-approval and all that.
Different people do have different ways of earning income, right? There's 1099 self-employed business owners. There's people that work W-2 type jobs, and having the right lender for that person. And some people just have either bad credit or really good credit. They have different resources, and we basically work on developing relationships with these people as well, right? A circle of people that are options in different situations, because sometimes you deal with people that are bilingual. You deal with people that are very proficient in like finances. So you want to match up. It's a little bit of mix and match with regards to that relationship as well.
I feel like a matchmaker.
It is, yeah.
Well, and not even just with like a lender recommendation, because you want to put the consumer with a lender that would be a good fit personality wise for them.
Right.
Ideally, that is actually super important. But a matchmaker in terms of finding the right home for their family.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it takes the compilation of those steps, right? Of like understanding what their needs are, understanding what their finances are, putting them with someone that can put them in a strong position, so that when you do get to that point where you do find that home that fits all that, and you're making that offer, that it's a strong offer, because it's essentially what we do when we make offers is we paint a picture of the buyer to the seller, right? And that how that presents is essentially a skill. It's a very, very refined skill. After making hundreds, if not thousands, of offers on properties, you learn what works and what doesn't. You right?
You learn what not to say, what to say, and what not to say to
make it
to get the win.
Right.
Right.
So and we're pretty good at doing that. So yeah, that's taken years.
It has. Another one of the great values that agents have to their clients are their negotiation skills and their contracts. And recently, with the NAR lawsuit, that's all that's coming to a head. It's going to be August 17th, and buyers are going to have to sign buyer broker agreements. So that's going to be another new thing that's coming down the pipe. But there's, just to touch on it really quickly, they'll have to sign a buyer broker agreement in order to even go see homes now after August 17th. And they're legally, yeah, it's going to be by law. And I think a lot of buyers are going to be like, wait, what's this? I haven't had to do this ever.
Right. It's a change of protocol, right? And people are going to have to adjust, and it's going to take some adjusting and knowing how to do that. Like, I mean, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that knowing how to navigate that and how it's changing, right? You don't even know where to step in. And if you bought a home, let's say 3 years ago, which isn't that long ago, when you consider people don't move out from homes every
5 to 7.
Right. So if they're doing it 3, you're thinking they just bought a home yesterday, right? But now that's changing. So
there's so much that is changed, even from if you just bought a house a year ago. So, there's all those new changes that buyers are going to have to navigate. So having an agent on their side to help them with all those changes is really a big deal. But things that we've been doing all along for many years is educating our buyers on the home buying process. So, that's an evolving thing as well. Obviously not as big as all, the contract changes and everything that's coming, but we love to educate our buyers on the process because, like we were even saying before, if somebody buys a home every 5 to 7 years, that I can barely remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. I say that all the time, so like, how are you going to remember the home buying process from 5 to 7 years ago?
Thinking on your feet and thinking fast is what you wind up getting from doing it repetitively, right? Like anything.
Absolutely.
Whatever it is you're doing, if you're doing it repetitively daily, it becomes second nature to you. But if you don't do it, then not having that skill it puts you in a bad spot, and it can cost you a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, even like your dream home, because you don't know what to say, or you don't know how to best present it, and it costs you your dream home. So that's not ideal.
Yeah, most definitely. So I like to explain a lot of negotiation strategies to my clients so they feel very involved in the process, and even go over the contracts with them so they know what they're signing. That's a huge deal.
So what you're describing is our buyer consultation, right?
Yes.
That's the next value add item that an agent could bring,
yes,
which is a long consultation.
It takes about an hour or so. And I would actually venture to say that most agents don't do buyer consultations, like formal buyer consultations.
Right.
But we do them with each and every client that we have. And I think it really does help to educate the buyer on the process, because then when something pops up in the transaction, they're going to be like, oh yeah, you told me about that. I remember that.
Yeah. And they don't, and when people don't know the next step, they don't want to move forward.
Well, they feel nervous.
Right.
Can you imagine?
You don't know what you don't know. So all you wind up doing is freezing, and that doesn't work. So knowing, sometimes I think when I mentioned this in another podcast, whenever I first started, like I didn't know what to do next. And my clients didn't know, and they were looking to me to tell them what to do next. And what our buyer consultation does is essentially lays out the whole process up front so you can walk through the whole process, internalize as much as you can, right? At least to where you get the bullet points and or know how to reference it back. Then when you do, you can now say, oh, we're at this point in the process, and or this point, and at least from a framework perspective, you can see where the beginning and the end is.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you get started, you don't know the beginning, you don't know where we're going. You feel so out of sync, and like the idea of doing something that's that complicated and that risky, right? You don't want to.
It's nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
It's nerve-wracking for them. So the more information they have up front, even though they might not remember it because it's a lot to digest, the more they know up front, at least if they've heard it once before, when it pops up, they're not going to be like, hey, wait a minute.
And we always give them the package. So, I mean, worst case scenario, you can kind of reference it as you go, and then you can kind of use it like a cheat sheet, essentially, as to what's next. And it helps trigger ideas. It helps trigger what questions to ask. If you have certain things that are in your fear, what you're afraid of, you bring up these questions because, and you know where in the process it is, right? And how to make sure you address it. So it is a long process from getting in there and describing what's simple to us, but how do you protect a deposit? Like most people think you're going to have to put 3% of, say, $1 million home, you're going to have to put $30,000 in like day 2, day 3, right? So what's going to happen to my 30 grand? If what happens? Is it just gone?
One of the biggest questions I get asked on that is, oh, I don't get that back, right?
Right.
But you do. I mean, you absolutely get that back as long as you haven't removed all your contingencies. So it's just questions like this that we navigate through just based on common fears. So educating our buyers is one of the biggest value adds that an agent has to give to the consumer, because without representation, you're not going to have a trusted advisor to go to with all of your questions and your concerns.
And you just book one of those in our lending, or I would say lending tree, but it's what's it called?
Linktree.
Linktree.
Yeah.
Right?
So right from our Instagram, you can access our Linktree account.
Yeah.
And if you click on it, there's book a consultation. You can book a buyer consultation. You can book a seller consultation, or you can even just book like a quick 15-minute chat. And, if you want to just discuss your personal situation, right?
Real quick, right? Yeah.
Real quick. So either way, you can go that route.
One of the most obvious things that agents do is show property, right? They take you out, open the door. Here's the bedroom. Here's the kitchen. The good old.
Stating
like you can't
stating
see
the obvious.
Yeah, but you in being in the house with people, you don't know what to say. But
I hope you know more than that to say.
But it's like I'm kidding, of course. But
I know.
Like you're feeling the air, right? You're feeling the air, and you feel like Vanna White a little bit, like to the left, to the right. But nonetheless, it is about pointing out the features, right? So you walk through the house, you show them the house, you make sure the house is safe. That's a big thing. A lot of these homes are locked with a key box, so you need a special thing that's in our phone now, right? With technology, you get in there, it records who came in, what time you came in, what time that box was opened, what time that box was closed. So it's a big security thing for us to be able to give to our sellers primarily, right? But as a buyer's agent, you're providing essentially a timeline there.
Yeah, I mean, and we're scheduling appointments to see the property. We're coordinating all of that with the listing agent and the seller so that, we can schedule the tour for our clients and get them access to properties that, are not on open house, right? Because if people think that that's the only time that they're going to see the house is at the open house time, a lot of listings, they don't even have open house.
You're going to miss about a third of the homes.
Yeah, you will miss a lot of the inventory if you are solely relying on open houses.
We tried sometimes when they go on the market on a Wednesday, open houses are generally on a Saturday, Sunday. You might not even see it because people will jump on it Thursday, Friday, make an offer, try to get it off the market because they really like it, and you never even got a shot. So, yeah, having an agent that has set you up with an automated search that alerts them as well, right? So it alerts everybody that, hey, a new property came up because you set the criteria to be specific, because you got their needs. You know, it's so intricate to set these triggers in the MLS or you know, whatever system you're using, that it alerts us when something specific hits their needs. And
Well, time is of the essence when something
big
hits the
time.
market, especially if it's a rare property or a very upgraded property. You know, you definitely want to jump on it as soon as you can.
Yeah, and then finding out, like, because I have clients that sit in the house and they're like, okay, how much are they asking? And they're like, maybe they've only seen a couple houses. They're like, I love this house, but is this too much? Is it not? Is it low? Is it high? Like, no idea. So we provide them a comparables, right? So we can show them what's sold in the neighborhood recently, as close as we can match to this house and what it's sold for. And you can see multiples. You see a trend of what things are selling for, and it lets you put that property in a place where you can see more or less what it's worth, right? It's pictures. It's doing the research to give that, and a good agent will give you that information on the home before you make the offer, so you're educated going in.
I did that with a client on the phone today. She sent me a property. She said, I think we should go see this. I said, I agree. And she said, what do you think about the price? And I said, you know, I think it looks really good, but let me just double check it really quick. So I hopped on the computer and with her on the phone and looked, and it was a smoking deal. It was like 40 grand under probably where it would appraise based on the
Oh,
comparables.
great. Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't even a super expensive house, and to have like a $40,000 difference between the last sold model match, that's a big deal. So, I mean, that's just stuff that we can do very quickly. The average consumer is going to, I mean, you might be able to get that information, but it's certainly going to take them a lot more time. And they're also going to not really know what they're looking at, because sometimes
Right.
you
Right.
could see something on the outskirts of that neighborhood and not understand all the tract codes and everything that we've been trained to look at when we're trying to identify price.
Right. And just being over a little bit may change the school districts, may change a lot of these dynamics that would affect value, right? Yeah, being able to navigate that is a huge thing when you have a good agent, a good experienced agent that knows what they're looking at, right? And different amenities that come with the houses. While you're in the house, you spot things in the walls, you know, like whole house vacuums, like little things that are, you're like, oh my God, that's like, there's a good value there. Like, that's expensive. You're like, hey, okay. People are like, they don't see it because especially when you're showing like 5-7 houses a day, it kind of all starts blending together.
It does. I don't really like to show more than
3, 4.
three, four. Yeah, because I think after that it just becomes a blur for
But
people.
some people want to see a lot of houses, and if there's a lot of inventory in a certain area, that they want to make sure they want to make sure they are looking at all the
Well, of course,
everything that's
and
available.
I'm not trying to say I don't show more than 3 or 4 houses in a day. Like, come on.
I know, I
I've
get what
showed
you're
like
saying.
10, 12 houses to one
It starts
client.
blurring.
But it's hard. It's very hard. We have like little funny nicknames that we come
Yeah.
up with,
The house with the turtle,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. The house with the red door. Yeah.
Little triggers to help you remember.
The funnier, the better.
I
Right? The
agree.
funnier the
I
trigger, the
agree.
better. Like, like the one with the iguana or something like that, whatever. That helps trigger the memories. And if it's something you really like and you want to reference back, or something that you was really bad and makes a joke, like, I mean, not that we want to make fun of people's houses, but it happens. I
No.
mean, sometimes people do some pretty crazy things. And yeah, and we protect people's privacy, of course, but like yeah, and that's something that we want to do. We want to when you want to take clients out, you want to give them the education and then follow them along the way. Make sure they're taking things into account that affect value, affect their goals, that fill their goals, or that or hey, you told me that you wanted this, and look at that, that's over there. Like, there's something that's contrary to that, and there's two properties, and they're not taking a certain thing into account. Helping them understand, like, hey, you wanted goats. You know what I mean? This area is not zoned for goats,
Right.
right? And
Or even like neighborhood crime statistics,
Yeah.
those are things we can access very easily, or even school district stuff. We have
Information, yeah.
resources for all that kind of information. And I mean, yes, people could probably go out and find all that information themselves. Majority of it is public knowledge, I would say, but it's knowing where to look. And, also that's not their full-time job.
Right.
Buyers have jobs. They've got to earn a living. They've got to make money so that they can pay for that house that they want to buy.
Yes.
The last thing they need to do is make a career out of becoming a part-time real estate agent so that they can find their own house. That's like, would you cut your own hair, or, do your own surgery?
What I did in COVID times, maybe.
I was cutting your hair during COVID
Yeah,
time.
well,
What are you
that
talking
was-
about?
That's because my barber wasn't doing anything, and I was starting to look pretty scruffy there.
Yeah, I think I did a good job though.
It wasn't. I wasn't bad. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
I think I bought some clippers on Amazon, and we got it done.
I figured out a way to cut my own hair too. That was interesting.
Oh Jesus! Oh, I remember that. That was interesting.
Yeah.
That one, was it that half moon clip thingy?
It was like a tool thing, and it had a level in it, and I would flip my hair over.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's tough times call for tough measures.
Exactly.
what
Okay.
you
Well,
can.
we're getting off track a
will.
little. So back to like the top 5 things. So negotiating offers. That's another key thing, because
well,
we have
kind of touched on it a little bit, right? A little
well,
while
we
ago.
did. Yeah.
But packaging it together, like with in a way, and then the contracts are. I mean, they're just changing the contracts now, but like learning all the nuances within the contracts and how to navigate them, and then there's a form behind a form to apply it to a certain thing. If you have to sell a house, to protect the fact that you're not, you're selling a house and you're letting them know you're selling a house, so that way, if your house doesn't sell, you don't wind up owing them, right? So like you have that as a contingency to get out, like the contingency we talked about before, which is a whole presentation in itself. But that all protects the client from not overcommitting where they're not ready, right? Not being able to appraise, not finding out the house has got a cracked foundation or something crazy, or a leaky roof. These are all things that if they don't, some people have a higher threshold for paying with that kind of stuff, but like that's the decision of the buyer, right? But not being educated with it, that's not fair. That's not cool.
One of our main jobs as agents, whether it's for a seller or for a buyer, is to keep our clients out of court. And we have many, many years of experience, many transactions under our belt. What are you knocking on?
I'm knocking on wood, man.
Knocking on wood. Yeah. I
No,
have never had to go to court with a client. Thank
Knock on
goodness.
wood.
I know. but that is our main job. And
Right.
can you imagine somebody trying to represent themselves, a buyer trying to represent themselves, and how that would go? I mean, the contracts are thick, and
Yeah.
understanding them would be a challenge for somebody who does not do this often.
Well, and what happens is in a scenario where you're going out on your own as a buyer, and then you're going into the market dealing with an agent that's a fiduciary of the seller, you're going essentially into court representing yourself. Now, the other party has a lawyer. Not exactly the same, but still somewhat of a metaphor, right? For going into a match that you're not necessarily.
It's like going up against an Olympic athlete.
Well, you know what the thing is, if you practice something, you're going to be better at it. That's the bottom line, right?
Yes, that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, and if you're educated in it, you took tests on it, you did all this work to get up to a certain level, you are unmatched. I mean, granted, there are great negotiators, just individuals who are just naturally really good at this kind of stuff. I know a couple that are good friends of mine, but like not going, especially if you've done it a lot of times, like people that buy homes a lot, maybe you get better at it, but like not knowing, going in there, it's scary.
My son was a great negotiator. I always thought when he was a little kid, he was going to end up being an attorney when he grew up.
I was trying to talk you out of the,
Yeah, you know how kids are trying
yeah,
to negotiate with their parents,
yeah, that's a whole
right?
skill right there. Trying to talk you out of into staying up late, into
Yeah,
something, some kind of food or
buying some
snack.
kind of video game or you know.
That's it.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm joking, of course, because everyone has some negotiation skills, right? But when it comes time to go up against somebody who does this every single day, you don't want to be in this on your own.
Right. I agree. You don't want to be that. You don't want to be that person. That's you're outgunned.
Most
I mean,
definitely.
yeah. I mean, it's a case by case basis, but in most cases, if you haven't bought, if you don't sell, you know, multiples of homes in a year, like we do, and you're not in that process, and you don't have the wide experience of every different scenario, from dealing with septics and septic tanks to like wells and like solar panels and
I just had this conversation with a client yesterday. We're in a transaction right now, and there's a couple of things that came up in this one we're in with him. And I told him, I said, you know, every transaction I do, no matter how long I've been in this business, I learn something new. And that is a very common saying amongst good agents, that they take learning lessons from almost every transaction. There's something to be learned from. So, yeah, I mean, for example, I learned from this most recent transaction that certain solar companies won't transfer a solar loan over if it's an investor purchasing the home. I had no idea. That's not something I had ever seen before.
yeah. Well, it's a complication, right? So now you're buying a house that has solar, but you're buying it for an investor. So like maybe you'd never really bought a home for an investor that had solar. That's and maybe the company specifically, that's their parameter, and the companies that you've bought, like
I
there's
think
several
I
solar
think it I
companies.
think that's what it was. I think that it was this specific company that the solar loan was through. They don't allow loans to be transferred to investors. So I had to negotiate that the seller and the buyer would split the costs, we'd pay it off, then we could move forward with the transaction, right? So, it's having the experience and the forethought to figure out a complicated situation like that could be a major hiccup and tank a deal, but we figured it out. But my point being, now when I go into another transaction and there happens to be solar,
If you have a if your investors if you have an
you
investor
you
buyer,
you better bet if it's an
that's
investor
coming up front.
buyer, that is one of the very first things I'm going to ask before we even write the offer.
Yeah, no, you don't waste time. But even then, I mean, in that scenario, you protected your client because they were contingent, and you could have pulled them out if they when they found out that they couldn't do that. Now in other words, you have to buy the solar now, right? You can't assume the loan, or you have to find your own financing, because that's a specific criteria for the whatever finance company, because you have solar panel installer companies, and then there's a finance company that gives you the money to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And establishes a loan, so originates that loan. And if they have that criteria, that's what you ran into.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
good example.
Absolutely. And, leading to the fifth and final thing that I feel that's most important that agents do for their clients is we advocate for our client and facilitate the close.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts throughout the whole transaction, from transferring paperwork, which seems like, well, there's a bundle of paperwork, but getting everything filled out. And if as things go, like the needs of the buyer, like what they find, negotiations, making sure that what a buyer discovers, and then if finds that something is wrong and they're either needing to have it fixed or have it credited as some type of a financial credit, then that is gone to the end and it gets fulfilled, right? Or they have the legal recourse to be able to enforce what they where they've been wronged, or that. Although the idea is to keep checking and push along the way and put all that paperwork in place so that their demands are met, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a very, and it's hard to describe it because there's so many different places where it's applicable in a transaction, and as you go through and average things start from like an escrow opening to closing is 30 days, right?
There's a lot of coordination that goes into that entire process. There's a million moving parts.
So if you have like a month off of work to go like make sure you can figure that out and like do it, maybe it's not a bad idea. But like if you got to go to work and
Good luck.
Oh my God.
Good luck.
Well, no, I mean, the thing is, whenever you're focusing that much on something, you're detracting your attention from something else. We only have, I mean, as a human, you only have so much attention span in a day, right?
Oh, and
Only
so many
much
hours,
energy.
so many hours in the day to
And
get
energy.
everything done. I mean, and like I said before, you got to go to work. You got to get that paycheck so that you can pay for this house that you want to buy.
Right.
You don't need to be worrying about all the minutia of all the details and everything.
Yeah, that's a definite key point that I don't think people, well, I think a lot of people take it into account, and that's why they hire agents. And that's why 90%, it was like 89 or 90% of transactions in 2023 involved the buyer's agent. So that's maybe a 135th reason to hire an agent, but like that's thing. You should hire an agent. I mean, you need somebody in your corner that's strong, that knows, that's knowledgeable, and represents you and advocates for you and pushes your best needs to the front, your main needs, your goals to the front, and doesn't and ultimately puts you in a position where you're happy to live.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So if anyone wants to review the article that we pulled all the statistics from for this podcast episode, it's called 179 Reasons Why You Need an Agent. And it was published from the National Association of Realtors. So I'm going to link it below at the end of the podcast.
Perfect. That's it. So good. I think we explained it well. So if you guys want to get a buyer's agent, go on to the link tree. And it's in our Instagram or TikTok, or where do we have it on one of the platforms?
Yeah, it's definitely on the Instagram, and they can go there to book a call.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks for watching.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning into the Opposites Unite podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to leave a comment for a chance to get a shout out in our next video. See you next time.